If it's been a while since you and your ex broke up and you're still having a really hard time getting over it and moving on, this video was made specifically for you. We are doing some serious healing today, okay? And the way that we're gonna do that is through a little therapist secret that I'm gonna let you in on today. If you're new to this channel, hi, I'm Audrey. I'm currently practicing as a therapist, and our secret that I'm gonna spill today is that no matter what difficult situation you come to us with, we're still gonna mainly use the same single technique to help you cope with it, because this technique is just that powerful. And that technique is reframing. That's literally all we're trying to do is reframe stuff. Reframing really just means looking at the same situation, but from a different perspective. So if we're having a difficult time getting over a breakup, it could be because we are stuck looking at it from the same perspective from here. That just makes us feel really bad about ourselves and fills us with regret and anger and all those difficult emotions. So with a reframe, with a shift in perspective, we'll be able to get a fresh outlook on the breakup that's going to be much more helpful for us, because we'll be able to see things about the breakup from here that we could not see when we were stuck here. And these things are going to help us to feel much more resolved and at peace with the situation and just overall better about ourselves. Reframing a breakup is really one of the most effective ways that we can speed up our recovery. So in this video, I wanted to share with you 4 different ways that we can reframe a breakup that would probably come up in therapy. I'm also going to be sharing how I use these reframes to help me get through breakups of my own, because I still want this video to be relatable. I don't want it to come off as I'm the expert lecturing at you or anything. So we're going to be doing some sharing time today. Also, this is our 3rd video in our series on breakups for our February tradition on this channel of discussing overlooked relationship topics in the month of love and Valentine's Day. There are people going through breakups every month of the year, and maybe for some people it's especially hard in February. So I will leave our previous videos linked in the description, so feel free to check them out if you think they'd be helpful for you. Next week, we're going to be talking about the tangible habits and routines for recovering from a breakup. So if you'd like to catch that video when it comes out, then I welcome you to subscribe. But for now, let's reframe your breakup and do some healing. Forgiving someone is more for your benefit than it is for theirs. This one is for anyone who feels like they've been wronged or treated unfairly by their ex-partner and they've been struggling with just a lot of anger towards them. I used to struggle a lot with the concept of forgiveness because I was coming from this unhelpful perspective where the lighting also sucks, where I thought that forgiving someone means that you're letting that person off the hook and that what they did was actually okay. Well, what they did was clearly not okay, so obviously that means they don't deserve my forgiveness. And it was actually my therapist that pointed out to me that holding on to this anger has absolutely 0 impact on this person. It's not like my anger is going to telepathically reach that person and punish them in some way. The only person being punished by my anger is me. And I hated the fact that this was true. But my therapist was right. I could be sitting at home, stewing in anger, while that person is on vacation, lying on a beach somewhere, having an amazing time, going completely untouched by my anger. The only person suffering in that moment would be me. So can we work on forgiving them? Not necessarily because they deserve forgiveness, but because we deserve peace of mind, and also to use our energy towards more productive things. Taking responsibility takes our power back. The reason why I was angry after this particular breakup was because at the time I was under the unhelpful perspective that it was this person's behavior that was responsible for the problems we had. But in the few weeks leading up to the breakup, that person had blamed me for being responsible for the problems, and I did not think this was fair. And then fast forward a few months, I was going about my day, ruminating as you do after a breakup, and somehow my thoughts landed on, wait, he was right. I was to blame for the problems in the relationship because I was staying in this relationship despite knowing that I was unhappy in it, because I was afraid. I was afraid of what other people might think, that I had a failed relationship. I was afraid of hurting this person by breaking up with them. I was afraid of entering the dating world again, which all of these are not legit reasons to stay in a relationship. And all of this was on me, not the other person. I cannot explain how or why my ruminating thoughts went there that day, but I am so glad that they did, because that thought was the single most powerful thing that helped me to get over this particular breakup. And looking back now, I can understand why that thought was so liberating at the time. It was because before, when I was too busy blaming the other person, I was giving them all the power over my happiness. And in doing that, I had no say or control over how I felt or what I did from here. The moment I shifted the focus to myself and I owned up to the fact that I was responsible for my own unhappiness in that relationship, I was taking the power over my happiness back into my own hands. And from here, I can make whatever decisions or changes I want to make sure that I have happier, healthier relationships moving forward. So I really want to invite you to also ask yourself, how might I have contributed to my own unhappiness in that relationship? Not out of a place of blaming or shaming ourselves, but just out of a place of curiosity. And then based on that knowledge, how can I make different choices moving forward so that my next relationship is even better? Making mistakes is normal and to be expected. After a relationship ends, I tend to get really critical of myself for the mistakes or the bad decisions that I made in that relationship, and I'll tell myself really mean things from this unhelpful perspective. Things like, how could I not have seen this coming? How could I have made such a stupid mistake? How could I have had such poor judgment? Can I even trust my own judgment moving forward? I think anyone out there who also tends to be overly critical of themselves and gives themselves like no room to make any mistakes at all will be able to relate to this. If we ever find ourselves beating ourselves up like this after a breakup, here is a reframe that we can all use to give ourselves a goddamn break. Learning how to be in a happy, healthy relationship is a trial and error process, meaning that we are going to make errors. It is just part of the process. Making mistakes is just a rite of passage to dating and relationships. Whether we made the mistake of staying too long in a relationship that we should have left sooner, or giving someone too many benefits of the doubt, or accepting treatment from someone that made us feel bad about ourselves, or whether we think we made a mistake by even entering this relationship in the first place. All of these mistakes or bad decisions are completely normal and okay and to be expected. Also, it's really not fair to our past selves for us to sit here today and judge our past decisions with the knowledge that we have today that we did not have at the time. We probably didn't even realize we were making a poor decision then. We were just doing our best with what we knew at the time. So can we just all stop being so hard on ourselves about this? I don't think we necessarily need to aim to get rid of all of our self-criticism entirely, because actually holding on to a tiny bit of it is protective. It's going to protect us from ever allowing ourselves to make that mistake ever again. But I do think that we could all do with turning down that self-criticism a few notches. It's just not helpful. Our past self does not deserve to be berated. Our past self deserves our compassion, and really now more than ever. Relationships don't have to last forever to be successful. Let's all imagine for a second that we are in a version of our lives where we enter a relationship when we're 20 years old, and this relationship lasts forever or until the end of our life. And let's say we live until we're 80, so this is a 60-year-long relationship. This relationship is successful for the first 10 years. You guys get married, have kids, but then at the 10-year mark, you guys start to have some serious issues. And for the last 50 years of the relationship, majority of the time, the relationship is not in a good place. You guys constantly argue. You can't stand each other. You can barely stand to be in the same room. But despite all of that, you still stay together because logistically it's easier. Divorce is expensive, and what are your friends and family gonna think? So you just end up spending the last 50 years of this relationship and of your life feeling unhappy, unfulfilled, and just miserable a lot of the time. Now let's imagine we're in a different version of our lives where we still enter the same relationship with the same person when we're 20 years old, but we break up after 10 years around the same time where we start to feel unhappy. The next few years are tough, like really bad. We're dealing with the grief over this relationship, the judgments from other people, and trying to dismantle and then rebuild our entire lives. But then eventually, after a few years and a few disastrous dates, we end up in another relationship, and this relationship lasts forever. Not because of logistics or judgment from other people, but because we are just happier and more fulfilled in this relationship than we had ever been in the whole 10 years of our previous one. If any of us were asked which of these two different versions of our lives would we consider to be more successful, I think most of us would agree on the second one. For anyone who's feeling really bad right now because they are in this unhelpful perspective that their relationship failed because it didn't last forever, I really hope that this example helps to illustrate just how inaccurate that perspective is. A lot of us hold this belief actually, that a relationship is only successful if it lasts forever, because this is what society and rom-coms have taught us. But if we look at these two different versions of our lives, I think it's pretty obvious this is a really bad way of defining success. Every relationship is going to have its own natural life expectancy, whether that's 10 years or 60 years or 10 months or 10 weeks even. And when a relationship goes past its natural life expectancy, to me, that is when a relationship starts to become unsuccessful, because at that point, we're probably just having a really bad time. So instead of defining a successful relationship as one that goes on forever and ever, can we instead redefine a successful relationship as one that ends up where it's supposed to end up? I listened to an episode of the podcast How to Fail with Elizabeth Day like years ago when she had Alain de Botton on as a guest. His work has honestly shaped my life. But what he was saying in this episode was that a relationship ends because it has taught you what you need to learn. I'm just checking now, this episode came out in 2019. 2019, that was 5 years ago, and this line has still stuck with me 5 years later. I've had my own share of relationships that have ended in those past 5 years, and this concept has held up every time. Each relationship has taught me something really useful about what traits I don't want in a partner, how I will never allow myself to be treated again, or that I need to work on communicating my needs better or speaking up when I have a concern. It's just a very comforting thought to think that a relationship ended when it did, because at that point it had given us all the information that we needed to learn that lesson. And had we stayed any longer in that relationship, we would have just been kept getting fed the same information over and over again, and it would just get redundant and it would not be a good use of our time. Also, it just makes us feel a lot better about ourselves when we can be like, look at this new knowledge I have. I am wiser, I am more emotionally intelligent, more experienced. Look at what I gained from this breakup. And when we're able to use these lessons to benefit ourselves and our future relationships, that is a successful breakup. I really hope that these reframes are helpful and healing for you, and hopefully I'll see you next week where we're going to be talking about the tangible habits and routines that we can implement to help us on our healing journey. But in any case, as always, I hope you are doing well. I appreciate you, and I will see you next time. Bye.